When I was at my absolute poorest, I got sucked into some kind of survival game. The challenge was to survive 7 days on just $50. And the winner would walk away with $1 million. As someone who might as well be certified as a professional at being broke, I knew exactly how to survive on next to nothing. That prize money had my name written all over it. I was sucked into some game world with 99 other people. System's robotic voice announced, "Welcome all 100 players to the survival of the poorest. Starting funds, $50 objective. Survive 7 days inside the game. The winner gets $1 million in prize money. Overspending, dying, or stepping outside the designated area will be treated as a forfeiture, and you will carry $1 million in debt." The voice paused for a moment. Then, with a sly tone, it continued, "Now then, do any cowards want to back out?" A young punk scoffed. "Quit. Are you kidding me? 7 days? I could last that long just drinking water." A chubby guy in a cheap t-shirt next to him wiped his sweat and said, "Exactly, I can buy some bread with those $50. Just stretch it out, and it'll be enough. Go big or go home." Only an idiot would quit. The crowd buzzed with blind excitement. All 100 players stayed in. Not a single person quit. The system chimed in again. "The game rules are now in effect. Players cannot quit. All 100 players have been deployed, everyone. Welcome to airport limbo. Good luck staying alive." Suddenly, a burst of white light flashed before me, and I found myself standing in a modern airport. The place was massive, and I could not even see the end of it. Crowds of people moved back and forth, making it impossible to tell who was a player and who was an NPC. My game wallet displayed the untouched $50 I had started with, and my interface showed 3 stats: hunger, thirst, and energy, all of which were currently in order. I spotted a convenience store across the way, so I headed over to check out the prices. As I walked up to the refrigerated section, a panicked cry rang out. Holy crap! It was that chubby guy from earlier, staring hard at the convenience store's cold case. A bottle of water is $15. That's robbery. I walked over and scanned the shelves, my heart sinking. Cupcakes were $50, sandwiches were $40, buns were $10 each. And even the cheapest package, crackers, cost $18. A daily budget of $7 was not even enough to cover half a bottle of water. The chubby guy looked at me, his face full of despair. Player 66 were screwed. This money is only enough for 3 bottles of water. We're going to die within a week. I sighed. The system isn't running a charity. I knew it wouldn't be that simple. Other players also crowded into the convenience store, looking similarly shocked and panicked. The chubby guy pulled me aside and said, "I'm player 44, Omari Hayes. Let's team up." "Okay. It'd be good to have someone to watch your back in the game. If anyone messes with you, I can take them down." He demonstrated some grappling moves, and his skills seemed pretty decent. However, before I figured out the game rules, I did not want to team up with anyone, so I politely declined. After that, I left the convenience store on my own. My first priority was to find water. Free water. Outside the restrooms, I found a water fountain. Then I spotted 2 discarded plastic water bottles nearby, washed them clean, and filled both to the brim. My water problem was solved, and it cost me nothing. Next up was getting some energy. I saw a cafe up ahead on the condiment station. Packets of white sugar, creamer cups, and brown sugar were neatly arranged. Sugar was a crucial energy source, and the packets could come in handy in emergencies to prevent low blood sugar. With a blank expression, I calmly walked over like I was just grabbing something at home. A dozen sugar packets and a few creamers slipped into my pocket in under 2 seconds. Once I was done, I calmly walked out of the cafe and found a secluded corner. I tore open 2 sugar packets and dumped them straight into my mouth. The intense sweetness exploded across my tongue, giving me a cheap illusion of fullness. Energy solved, cost 0. The airport's AC was cranked up full blast, cold as a freezer. I figured the system did it on purpose because the colder it was, faster a person burned through energy. My thin clothes could barely block out the cold, so I had to keep moving to stay warm. Thankfully, I found a blanket in the trash someone had tossed after getting off their flight. As time went on, the hunger grew intense. At 8 p.m., I wandered over to a bakery. The leftover bread behind the glass display case was giving off a warm, buttery smell. My stomach let out a loud growl. Relying on my broke girl instincts, I figured this was the hour when the bakery would start marking things down. Sure enough, the bread that was originally $30 cost $15. However, that still was not good enough. I knew that close to closing time, the discounts would be even lower, be even free. Every dollar I saved was another chance to survive. So I sat in a chair across from the bakery, resting with my eyes half closed. Just then, someone used the public game broadcast and anonymously posted, "Come to the bakery in section A on level 3. Everything is half off. Half off bread. It's in section A. Hurry. Don't take it all. That's mine." Dozens of players rushed in from every direction, frantically charging toward the bakery. In just seconds, the small storefront turned into a mob scene. In the chaos, I saw people waving cash, while others straight up grabbed bread off the shelves. The employees panicked as they shouted, "Please line up." However, no one listened. Within minutes, every discounted item, including the loaf I had been eyeing, was cleared out. The people who managed to buy something looked relieved, like they had just survived a disaster, while those who came up empty were slamming their fists and staring in despair. The area was filled with other players cursing, complaining, and sighing hopelessly. My hunger bar rose to 30%, took a deep breath, pushed down the cramping in my stomach, and shifted my gaze away from the chaotic crowd toward the massive flight information display screen. High up in the airport, red flight statuses kept scrolling past. It was time to show my real skills. In this airport, players could move freely to any location, even without a ticket. A person could go to the gates, quickly scan the big screen, and locked onto several delay notices marked in bold red. Flights delayed over 6 hours were my actual targets. Dragging my weak legs, I headed toward a gate. There I saw that a small group of people had gathered, and the air was thick with frustration and sweat. Gate 102 had been delayed for 8 hours. The stranded passengers had the airline staff completely surrounded. The staff member was a young woman, whose face had flushed red, because the passenger's spit was practically hitting her. "Does your airline even know how to do its job? My kid is starving and crying. Do something. Compensation. We demand compensation. Give it to us now." The scene was out of control. The poor staff member looked like she was about to break down. This is my chance, I thought, as I shoved my way into the center of the crowd. However, I was not there to break up the fight, but to position myself in front of the staff. "Quiet," I yelled at the top of my lungs. The crowd went silent, shocked by the sudden turn of events. I pointed at the mother holding a crying child and addressed all the passengers, my voice rising with emotion. Just look at how badly this poor kid is crying. Does yelling help the plane take off any faster? The airline messed up and they need to take responsibility. But what do we need most right now? We need food, a place to rest, and enough strength to stand our ground. I turned to the staff, who was on the verge of a breakdown, and said everyone's emotions are running high. The priority right now is to calm the passengers down. Meal vouchers, hotel vouchers, and them out immediately. Let people get some food and get settled. Because if this blows up any bigger, can you handle the fallout? The staff mumbled pitifully. I've been telling them the whole time that meal vouchers and hotel vouchers are available, but they won't take them. Everyone needs to line up and collect them with their boarding passes. You're still worried about procedures at a time like this. I cut her off, pointing at the mom with the baby. Look how exhausted she is. She's been holding her child for 8 hours. And now she has to stand in line for your meal vouchers. I turned to the mother and said, "Ma'am, give me your boarding pass. I'll get it for you." I extended my hand, be all firm, as if I would not allow the lady to refuse my help. The exhausted mother instantly shoved her boarding pass into my palm, like it was a lifeline. Once someone made the first move, the effect was immediate. Several other passengers, who were traveling with children or the elderly, or simply looked drained, hurried over and pushed their boarding passes at me too. "Get mine, too. And mine." Within seconds, I was clutching over a dozen boarding passes. I turned to the airline staff and thrust the passes toward her, whispering, "Hurry up and handle the most urgent cases first. It's better than having this hit the news, right? Slip me 2 extra meal vouchers, and I'll calm down these parents so everyone has a way to back off." Gracefully, the staff looked at me with gratitude and quickly typed the information into the system. Soon, she pulled out a stack of meal vouchers, counted out the ones matching the boarding passes. I had then secretly added 2 more before handing them to me. With a thankful look, "Score." I silently cheered. My heart was pounding wildly, but I remained calm on the surface. "Here you go. Take your baby and go get some food, sir. Here's yours." I quickly distributed the corresponding meal vouchers and boarding passes back to everyone, moving efficiently. Finally, I tucked those 2 extra vouchers into my hidden pocket. I shouted to the crowd, "Everyone go get your vouchers and grab some food. Rest up and save your energy. We'll deal with them later." While the crowd's attention shifted to collecting vouchers, I slipped out, instantly disappearing into the bustling terminal corridor. In this game, the only way to survive was to see the gaps faster than everyone else. Just as I left the gate area, I ran into Omari again. He smiled warmly and said, Player 66. I saw what you did back there. You handled the situation like some big shot from a movie. Are you sure you don't want to team up with us? We might all need to watch each other's backs later on. In just one day, he had managed to gather 4 more players around him. I still declined his invitation. I grabbed some food with the meal voucher, temporarily maxing out my hunger bar. However, exhaustion hit me like a wave, as my energy level had already dropped below 50%. It was now 11 p.m., and foot traffic in the airport had noticeably thinned out. Most shops were closing up. The lights had grown dim, and an indescribable atmosphere of dread was starting to creep in. The lights didn't turn off, they just hummed louder. That was the first lesson of the airport at night. Silence was a myth. The floor polishers came out, massive, Zamboni-like machines piloted by faceless NPCs who would run you over if you didn't move. I found my sleeping quarters in an interfaith prayer room near Gate 40. It was quiet, carpeted, and, crucially, devoid of cameras. I wedged a doorstop I'd pilfered from a janitorial cart under the door. My hunger was at 10%, but my thirst was creeping up. I slept in 90-minute bursts, my backpack strapped to my chest like a baby carrier. When I woke up on day 2, the game had shifted. The system voice crackled overhead, devoid of the previous day's sly humor. Good morning, travelers. Due to supply chain issues, inflation has hit airport limbo. All shop prices have increased by 200%. Have a pleasant flight. I checked the nearest vending machine. A Snickers bar was now $54. My stomach tightened, not just from hunger but from the math. Even with my $50 starting cash and the meal vouchers, I was mathematically eliminated from buying food legally. I headed back toward the main terminal atrium. That's when I saw the kingdom of Omari. Player 44, Omari Hayes, had been busy. He had taken over the food court in Terminal B. He had about 20 players with him now. They had pushed tables together to form a barricade. Inside the perimeter, I saw stacks of bottled water and sandwiches. They must have pooled their money before the inflation hit. Omari was standing on a table, looking less like a chubby guy in a cheap shirt and more like a warlord. Entry to the safe zone is $10 or 1 food item, his lieutenant, the young punk who had scoffed at the beginning, shouted. Inside, we share resources. Outside, you starve alone. I watched from the mezzanine. It was a classic pyramid scheme. The new recruits paid to get in, feeding the top brass, hoping for scraps. I knew how this ended. The people at the bottom always got eaten first. I turned away. I needed a new hustle. I spent the afternoon tailing the cleaning crew and PCs. They were programmed to follow loops. I noticed that at 2 p.m., the crew cleaning the first-class lounge, the Diamond Club, took a break. They left the service door propped open with a trash can for exactly 4 minutes while they smoked outside in a designated unauthorized zone. I didn't have a first-class ticket, and the front desk was manned by a hawk-eyed NPC. But the service door? I waited. The moment the cleaners turned the corner, I slipped through the gap. The Diamond Club was nirvana. Soft jazz, leather armchairs, and a buffet. Not a paid buffet, a complimentary buffet for ticket holders. My heart hammered against my ribs. If an NPC caught me, I'd be ejected or worse, fined. I grabbed a porcelain plate, kept my head down, and acted bored. The key to crashing high society events is looking like you're disappointed by the service. I loaded up on mini quiches, smoked salmon, and croissants. I poured coffee into a travel mug I found on a busing tray. I ate fast, shoving calories into my system until my hunger bar hit 0 and my energy spiked to 100%. Then, I raided the shower suites. I stole distinct, travel-sized shampoos, soaps, and 3 plush white towels. Not to use, but to sell. As I was leaving, stuffing a final handful of biscotti into my pockets, I made eye contact with another player. It was a skinny guy, player 89. He was hiding behind a potted fern, shaking, trying to eat a stale crust he'd brought in. He looked at me. Terrified I'd rat him out. I winked, put a finger to my lips, and slipped back out the service door. Player count, 94. 6 died of dehydration or quit, accepting the debt. By day 3, the atmosphere had turned feral. The water fountains had been shut off. Maintenance issues, the system announced. The only water source was the bottled stuff in shops, now $45 a bottle, or the bathroom sinks. But the bathroom sinks had been claimed. Omari's goons were guarding the restrooms in Terminals A, B, and C. They were charging players access to the tap water. It was extortion. I was sitting in the observation deck, watching planes that never took off taxi endlessly on the runway. I was thirsty. I had the first-class water in my belly, but it wouldn't last forever. Omari found me. He didn't come alone. He had 3 guys with him. Player 66, Omari said. He looked cleaner than everyone else. Well-fed. You're looking surprisingly healthy. Better than my guys. I have a fast metabolism. I lied, not looking up from the tarmac. We saw you coming out of the Diamond Club yesterday, Omari said, his voice dropping an octave. We can't get in there. The NPCs aggressive aggro us. But you walked right out. Luck. Skill, Omari corrected. We need a thief. The vending machines are reinforced. The shops have invisible walls. But you know the exploits. Pass. Omari signaled his goons. They stepped closer. It wasn't a request. The water is gone, 66. The system is ramping up the difficulty. Tonight, the temperature drops. You can't survive alone. Watch me. I stood up to leave, but the punk kid grabbed my arm. Pay the toll, bitch. Reflex took over. I didn't fight fair. Poor people don't have the luxury of honor. I stomped on his instep, driving my heel down, and when he bent over, I slammed my elbow into his nose. He howled. I sprinted. Get her. Omari screamed. I vaulted over a row of waiting area seats. I knew the airport layout better than them now. I headed for the baggage claim. The baggage carousel for Flight 815 was moving. I didn't hesitate. I dove onto the rubber belt, curling into a ball. I passed through the rubber flaps, into the darkness of the baggage sorting area. It was a maze of conveyor belts and robotic arms. It was loud, dangerous, and strictly staff only. The system voice chimed. Warning. Player 66 has entered a restricted zone. Penalty, $500. My wallet flashed red. I was now in debt. Minus $450. But I was alive. And I was alone. I found a corner behind a massive luggage scanner. It was warm here. I curled up, listening to the rhythmic thump-thump of suitcases. Player count, 78. The game changed again. At noon, the airport shook. The floor tilted. People screamed. Attention, the system boomed. Simulated earthquake active. Structural integrity compromised in Terminal B. Terminal B, Omari's stronghold. I watched on the monitors from the safety of the international terminal. The ceiling tiles in Terminal B were falling. The food court was being crushed. Omari's group scattered like roaches. The stockpile of food they had hoarded was buried under rubble or looted by desperate solo players in the chaos. The social contract of the group dissolved instantly. I saw teammates fighting each other for a single bottle of water. Omari was shouting orders, but no one was listening. I realized then that the game master wasn't just testing survival, they were testing greed. By hoarding, Omari had created a target, both for other players and for the system. I stayed mobile. I never slept in the same place twice. I drank water from the toilet tanks in the family restrooms, the water there was clean if you knew how to open a cistern, and ate sugar packets I'd stashed. My energy was constantly hovering around 40%. I was cold, tired, and hallucinating slightly. I kept seeing my landlord's face on the NPCs. That night, I found player 89 again, the skinny guy from the lounge. He was slumped against a vending machine, his skin gray. Water, he croaked. I hesitated. Charity gets you killed. I looked at his stats. He was fading. I can't give you water, I whispered. But I can show you how to get it. I dragged him to the nearest janitorial closet. The door was locked. I pulled a bobby pin from my hair, a trick I learned when I locked myself out of my apartment in the dead of winter. It took 10 seconds. Inside, there was a slop sink. It wasn't Evian, but it was wet. He drank like a dying animal. When he finished, he looked at me with wet eyes. Why? You didn't rat me out at the lounge, I said. Debts are paid. I'm a coder, he said, his voice trembling. I noticed something. What? The debt. The $1 million penalty. He coughed. It's not just a number. It's a data transfer. When a player is eliminated, their debt potential is reassigned to the remaining pool to balance the economy. The total prize money isn't 1 million. It's variable based on how many people carry debt. I stared at him. Speak English. If everyone dies but one person, he said, the winner doesn't just get $1 million. They get the surplus value of the entire game instance. It could be 50 million. And if we lose? We don't just owe money, he shuddered. We become NPCs. The debt is worked off. Forever. A chill that had nothing to do with the AC went through me. Those floor polisher pilots? The faceless cleaners? Former players. Player count, 42. Omari survived the quake. But he had changed. He wasn't the benevolent leader anymore. He was a hunter. He had a core group of 3 thugs left. They were armed with makeshift weapons, pipes from broken chairs, glass shards taped to handles. They weren't looking for food anymore. They were looking for players. I found out why when I saw them corner a girl near the duty-free shop. They didn't hurt her. They took her game bracelet and forced her to transfer her funds. Then, they forced her to buy useless items from the store until she hit negative balance. The moment she went into debt, the system eliminated her. Player 12 eliminated. Forfeiture due to excessive debt. Omari was eliminating the competition to increase his share and reduce the variables. I was hiding in the ventilation duct above the Hudson newsstand. My hunger was back. The sugar crash was brutal. I needed real food. I had a plan, but it was insane. I needed to rob the duty-free. But not just rob it, I needed to trigger a security event that would take out Omari. I waited until Omari's patrol passed underneath. I had the shampoo bottles I'd stolen from the lounge on day 2. I'd emptied them and filled them with cooking oil I'd siphoned from the smashed remains of the food court fryers. I uncapped them and dripped the oil onto the polished marble floor at the intersection of the hallway. Then, I threw a heavy glass perfume bottle, stolen, at the nearest NPC security drone. Crash. The drone's alarm blared. Hostility detected. Engaging. Omari's team spun around. What the hell? The security drones, floating spheres with tasers, swarmed the area. Omari and his goons tried to run. They hit the oil slick. It was slapstick comedy from hell. They went down hard. The drones descended, zapping them. Violation of peace. Detention protocol initiated. Omari screamed as he was tossed, dragging himself toward the duty-free entrance. I dropped from the vent behind the counter, while the chaos unfolded. I grabbed handfuls of Toblerone and beef jerky. I looked at Omari. He was writhing on the floor, eyes locked on mine. "You," he roared. "Service with a smile," I muttered, and vanished into the shadows. Player count, 12. The airport went black. No emergency lights. No humming signs. Pitch blackness. The air grew stale. The ventilation had stopped. Sudden death phase initiated. The voice whispered. Survivors 5. Time remaining 24 hours. Only 5 of us left. Me, Omari, he somehow escaped detention, probably by sacrificing a teammate, player 89, the coder, and 2 others I hadn't seen. I had night vision. Or rather, I had a flashlight I'd built. I'd scavenged batteries from discarded remotes and taped them to a small LED bulb ripped from a toy plane in the gift shop. The silence was heavy. I found player 89 near the Skitran platform. He was bad. His leg was broken. Omari had gotten to him. 66, he wheezed. He's at the control tower. The entrance is in Terminal A. Save your strength. He has the master keycard, 89 said. He looted it from a security chief NPC during the blackout. He's going to lock the sectors. He's going to trap us in zones without oxygen. Why are you telling me? Because you're not one of them, he said. He held out his wrist. Take my funds. I have $12 left. It's not much, but take it. If I take it, you go into debt. You become a cleaner. I'm done anyway, he smiled weakly. Beat him. He tapped his bracelet against mine. Transfer complete. Then he smashed his own bracelet against the wall. The sensors picked it up. Destruction of property. Instant debt. Player 89 eliminated. I stood alone in the dark. I had $12. And I had a rage that burned hotter than hunger. I wasn't going to hide anymore. I made my way to Terminal A. The walk took hours. I moved like a ghost, stepping heel to toe. The entrance to the control tower elevator was guarded by Omari. He was alone now. He looked insane, shirt torn, bleeding, holding a fire axe he'd smashed out of a glass case. He had a pile of bracelets at his feet. The other 2 players. I knew you'd come, he rasped. The rat who lives in the walls. It's over, Omari, I said, keeping my distance. The game ends in 4 hours. It ends when I say it ends. He swung the axe, hitting a metal railing. Sparks flew. I have the keycard. I control the airlocks. I can vent the oxygen from the terminal right now. Give me your bracelet. He held up a shiny black card. I looked at him. He was terrifying, but he was also exhausted. He was running on adrenaline and psychosis. You want my bracelet? I asked. Come get it. I turned and ran toward the moving walkways. Coward, he screamed, chasing me. I jumped onto the walkway. It was dead still. I ran down the rubber track. He was faster, fueled by fury. He was closing the gap. I reached the end of the walkway, where the rubber belt disappears under the metal comb plate. I stopped and turned. Nowhere to run. He raised the axe. I reached into my pocket. Not for a weapon. For the sugar. I had the powdered sugar from the bakery, stored in a Ziploc bag. I waited until he was 3 feet away. I threw the bag into his face. He didn't blink in time. The powder coated his eyes, his nose, his mouth. He choked, blindingly swinging the axe. I ducked under the swing and tackled him. We hit the floor. He was stronger, but I was desperate. I wasn't fighting for $1 million anymore. I was fighting for every unpaid bill, every eviction notice. Every night, I went to bed hungry. I grabbed his wrist, the one holding the keycard. I bit his hand. Hard. I tasted blood. He screamed and dropped the card. I kicked it away. It slid across the floor, skittering into the gap between the walkway and the floor plates. No, he shrieked.
He scrambled for it.
He shoved his fingers into the gap. Suddenly, the power came back on. The Day 7 sunrise protocol. The systems rebooted. The moving walkway roared to life. Omari's hand was stuck in the mechanism. The belt jerked forward. I don't need to describe the sound. I backed away as the system voice blared. Player 44. Critical injury. Medical evacuation required. Cost of evacuation. $2 million. Insufficient funds. Debt protocol activated. Omari vanished in a flash of white digitization, his scream cut short. I was alone. I sat in the middle of the atrium. The sun was rising through the massive glass windows, painting the airport in gold. My stats were flashing red. Hunger, critical. Thirst, critical. Energy, 1%. But I was the last one standing. The system voice returned. It sounded different now. Respectful. Congratulations, player 66. Survival duration, 7 days. Opponents remaining, 0. A holographic screen appeared in front of me. Final settlement. Base prize, $1 million. Bonus, accumulated debt of 99 players, $48,500,000. Total winnings, $49,500,000. I stared at the number. It didn't feel real. Do you wish to cash out and return to the real world? I looked at the button.
Yes.
I thought about Omari. I thought about player 89, who is now probably a Roomba in the baggage claim. Wait, I croaked. I have a question. The system paused. Query, if I spend this money, can I buy the debt? Clarify. Can I use my winnings to pay off the debt of the other 99 players? The system was silent for a long time. The holographic number flickered. Calculating. The total debt of all eliminated players is $48,500,000. If you pay this, your remaining balance will be $1 million. You will release all 99 consciousnesses back to their physical bodies. They will retain no memory of the game. I looked at the number. $49.5 million. I could be a queen. I could never worry again. I could buy the actual airport. Then I looked at the cleaners in the distance. The faceless drones. I remembered the mother at the gate on day 1. I remembered the coder giving me his last $12. I was a professional at being broke. I knew how to survive on nothing. $1 million was more money than I'd ever seen. $49 million was just greedy. And greed is what kills you in this game. Besides, walking away with $49 million while 99 people became slaves? That was an Omari move. Pay it, I said. Release them. Transaction processing. The airport began to dissolve. The walls turned into code. The light became blinding. Payment accepted. Game over. I woke up on my futon. The smell of mold and instant noodles hit me. My apartment. The peeling paint. The traffic noise outside. I sat up, gasping, checking my body. No hunger bar. No energy meter. I was back. I grabbed my phone.
It was Tuesday.
The exact same time I had left. Was it a dream? A starvation hallucination? I checked my bank app. The balance usually read $4.12. I opened it. Balance. $1 million. I stared at it. I refreshed the page. Still there. I scrolled down. There was a transaction note attached to the deposit. Sender. The system. Memo. For playing the game, not the players. I laughed. A dry, raspy laugh that turned into a sob. I fell back onto my lumpy mattress, clutching the phone to my chest. I was rich. I was free. And somewhere out there, 99 other people were waking up, feeling strangely exhausted, grabbing a glass of water, and having no idea that they owed their lives to the broke girl who knew how to steal sugar. I got up. I walked to the fridge. I took out a bottle of water. It tasted like victory.